Wow. Today, you are going to be privileged to enjoy a very, very fun and entertaining and interesting and informative conversation that I got to have with Dr. Stephen Leeb, but I'm not supposed to call him doctor anymore. So, Stephen, he is an investment advisor and the founder of Leeb Capital Management in Manhattan. And for more than 45 years, he's helped investors navigate markets through newsletters, books, blogs, appearances. He's been on CNN, Fox News, NPR, and Bloomberg. Wow. I mean, it was so much fun. And we talked about gold as the foundation of money and geopolitics and what's happening in Venezuela and Russia, and lots of things. So, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Looking forward to this. I know you're a big silver fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, and I've seen you hold up silver before, and these are,
I have lots of gold and silver in lots of different forms.
I don't have any, well, I have gold in a safe in the other room, but silver, I think I have, this was $1 in coinage. Now it's 71 or whatever. Silver's down some
Oh,
today. It's 70,
six.
yeah, 70, $78, I think, if I'm reading it right. This was $1 not too long ago. I mean, I don't know exactly when it was minted, but I mean, I really did. I don't know. Maybe I copied you. I know you didn't copy me. I know that that
I have
I
so
may
much
have, I
respect for
very well
you.
may have copied you
Well,
in,
I
in,
do
in doing
know
it.
that at one point, that silver dollar was the same as this 20th of an ounce of gold, this itty bitty teeny weeny piece.
No, I did not know that, but it does not surprise me. It
Right.
does not surprise me.
This is a dollar gold coin versus, oh, well, this is new, but the silver dollar versus, where is it? I saw it in here. Here it is. Is that it? Yep. Versus a silver certificate.
Well,
And they were,
that's different. I thought you were going to just hold up a dollar bill, which is worthless.
which is
But no, a
worthless.
silver certificate is worth something.
Well, I
Yes,
probably didn't pay more than $5 for it because I don't pay a lot for the paper money. But it's how
right.
they do this transition, right? So for what, 20 years, all three of these were in the system at the same time. I also like to do it with the $20 gold piece because that I do have the $20 bill. And look at how much. So here's the $20 gold piece. This is a
That must
$20
be a
gold
fortune today, the
certificate.
$20 gold feature.
And this is a $20 Federal Reserve note. Look at how much alike they look.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
I mean, the thing in the bottom is today's $20 bill. That's what you would carry in your pocket
This,
to go to grocery shopping.
yes. This is actually dated 19. I'll show you this just because I think it's interesting. Maybe it's not. But yes, this
No, it
is
is
actually
interesting.
1969. This bill is. And what I like about it is it says on the top Federal Reserve note, and a Federal Reserve is a private corporation, as you know, and a note is a debt instrument. So, since all three
Right.
of these operated in circulation at the same time, together at the same stated face value, when they took the gold out of the system, they still had this. And people were used to this for 20 years.
It's beyond crazy. It's beyond crazy. It literally is. I mean, basically, everything changed when they took gold out of the system, in my opinion. I mean, this is, what I believe. I mean, I think that the country, this was a, every country has things that are wrong with it. There was nothing ever perfect
Mm-hmm.
about this country, but it was the greatest country that maybe ever lived. I mean, the 30 years after or 20 years after World War II, yeah, there was a lot of things wrong. The CIA was formed by Hitler's general. I mean, I know all this stuff. It was terrible, a lot of terrible things. But despite all those terrible things, I mean, really starting in 1935, we did nothing but creative things. The transistor, the
Mm-hmm.
laser, the internet, everything came out of the US. We're still depending on our technology. And we've turned it into, I'm not going to use a bad word on your channel, but I mean, we've turned it into dreck. It means, I think, a Jewish word that means, whatever it is.
Garbage.
Because everything became short-sighted.
Right.
I mean, you cannot run a monetary system where you're desperate for what the next quarter is going to bring out. And that's what we went to. I mean, the transistor was a work in progress that started in 1935. What company is going to start today, with the possible exception of Berkshire Hathaway? And they've been at it for more than 10 years or 20 years
Right.
with their railroad, et cetera. But, that's one exception. No country is going to spend 10 years developing research. And so what did we do? Went off the gold standard, which, forced everybody into this monetary mode of thinking. And, the next thing you know, the greatest, probably, I mean, people might argue with me, but the greatest research organization that maybe the world has ever known. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I think there's a good case for it. Bell Labs. What did they do? They broke up a government-owned or government-managed monopoly. AT&T, used to be this monopoly. They were in charge of communications. And, the government controlled how much they could charge. I mean, it was called the widows and orphans stock. I do remember that. And first thing they do, I mean, not the first thing, but, shortly after the gold standard went by the Bayside, they started thinking about breaking up AT&T. Okay, I mean, I can understand for competitive purposes, but for goodness sakes, they had subsidized, in terms of the allowed rate of return that AT&T could earn, virtually an unlimited budget for Bell Labs, and for very good reason. Bell Labs cooperated with in MIT, the government. I mean, it was just a magnificent organization that, I mean, they did everything from validating, people question it now, but validating the Big Bang, how the universe was created. The Nobel Prize for that came out of Bell Labs. The transistor came out of Bell Labs. The laser came out of Bell Labs. Superconductivity came out of Bell Labs. I don't know enough science to list all the things that came out of Bell Labs. So, okay, they break up AT&T. You can sort of justify it. It was working well, but they had a choice then. What do they do with Bell Labs? Bell Labs has never been competing with anybody, and they were part of, I think, General Electric, technically. Well, they left it part of General Electric. General Electric had never competed with anybody. It was very easy to put Bell Labs, to create a separate organization for them where all the Bell companies, cooperated and supported Bell Labs for the good of the country, because you need long-term research. I mean, when we were on the gold standard, the government did the research. They didn't have a profit and loss statement. But once we went off the gold standard, corporations started doing the research. What do you think is going to happen to Microsoft if they disappoint by 20%? But they're going to fall by 40%. I don't know. I'm making up numbers.
Right.
But, Buffett, and strangely enough, the only other person that sort of followed that advice was Jeff Bezos. And look what happened to him. He did pretty well. I mean, his first letter to shareholders was, if you want immediate results, sell your stock. I don't want you as a shareholder. But you have two exceptions out there. And you have a country that has fallen. I mean, it brings tears to your eyes. I mean, how can Russia and China in, 25 years, a little more than a generation, pass us? How is that possible? It's impossible to believe. I mean, it took hard work to do it. But getting back to what I was saying about General Electric, I mean, keeping the Bell Labs subsidiary with the one company that was not, competing, or was competing. I'm sorry, that was competing. The company that made all the wiring for AT&T. They didn't have a chance. All of a sudden, they're in the world and they're competing. I think in 3 years, there's no more Bell Labs. Now Bell Labs is like, to call it a rump of what it once was is to exaggerate its importance. I believe it's part of Nokia, somewhere in the Scandinavian countries, doing nothing at all. That's what we did. with the greatest research organization that may have ever lived. And that all happened after gold. It happened after the government gave up on research, etc. How can you not like gold? With that in mind. I mean, seriously.
Well,
It,
I
it,
don't think it's a coincidence that the era of perpetual war coincided with the era of perpetual central banking, which obviously was something that didn't happen before the Federal Reserve. They had a short-term charter because governments knew that they would go into war, hyperinflate the currency, and they needed someone to blame it on. So
mhm.
and I like the point that you made about the short-termism, because that's really what started to happen is that,
It's horrifying.
yeah, and you have to be careful of what you ask for, right? So and
Right.
frankly, this is something that has me very concerned today, but we've been trained over all this time, thanks to the corporate structure that has taken over, right? Thinking shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter term. Now, that actually began, reading the documents when they first set the system up. What they said was, if we can make people have to work more to maintain their standard of living because inflation robs them of that, then they will have less time to pay attention to what we're doing. And I think that was the start of the
It's interesting.
yeah, I mean, it is really fascinating. I think that was the start of the short-termism. And also, when you look at the early research, and I'm happy to send you some of this documentation, but here's the
God, I'd love
crazy
to see
part.
it.
And this is the part that has me concerned. And I really wanted to talk to you about it because I showed you earlier, how they make these transitions, right? From a gold
Right.
standard
No, it's very interesting history lesson and a
to,
few pictures.
but they did the same thing in the 70s. And actually, and Japan has been very staunch on this. They knew that with inflation, we would go beyond the ability to have one wage earner to support a family, so that family was nuclear, and it was cohesive. Well, they needed to. Okay, I can't say that this was fully their reasoning, right? But what in effect actually happened in the 70s when we went completely off the gold standard, and fifth the fifth gold confiscation took place in America, when they basically confiscated the gold that we were holding for foreign governments. They could no longer pull their gold out. That is a form of confiscation. But
It
they
totally
knew that
is. Yeah,
pardon?
it totally is. Yes, it is. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, totally. But it forced the women into the workforce, which also then broke down the nuclear family. I know you remember the term latchkey kids.
Look, I hate to talk about things like this, okay? Because you get into, all sorts of political terms, wokeism and things like that. But there is no nuclear family in America right now.
Correct.
It's gone. It's completely gone. And, basically, I guess you have to, add the adjective that a nuclear family, there's nothing wrong with a stay-at-home dad. Look, if
Right.
I could have chosen and go back to history, you go back to when I was a young kid, got married, had kids, I would have chosen to be the stay-at-home dad and sit home and write and take care of the kids. Let my wife do the work. In fact, my youngest was once asked, I think in kindergarten, and I don't think it just evidenced, brightness as much as just a comment that, kids make. He said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And it was, well, however old you are in kindergarten. He said, I want to stay at home. I want my wife to do the work. It's nuclear. It's still a nuclear family.
Still in nuclear.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it doesn't matter. I agree.
it doesn't matter. I mean, that's why I was catching myself, because I'm saying I better be careful. I don't want to embarrass Lynette and, make some sort of anti-feminist comment or something like that, but it's not. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to stay home and take care of your kids. I would have chosen it.
Right.
And you're totally right. I never thought about that. It did destroy the nuclear family. It made two wage earners. And all of a sudden, somebody you don't know is raising your children. That doesn't
Exactly.
make a lot of sense. It really
Exactly.
doesn't. You're totally right.
Now let's fast forward to today, right? That was yesterday.
I
That
don't
was
I don't know if I want to go that far. Unless you're going to let me rent a house from you on a farm somewhere. I don't know if I want to go to
well,
the
maybe
day.
we can
But
talk about that. But today, I mean, if it didn't happen 2 seconds ago, it's old news, right? All of the scrolling, etc. One of the things that makes me very concerned is that we are no longer teaching people how to think for themselves. Now, that started back then.
Lynette, I could be quoting myself. I mean, this is such a big issue for me. I mean,
Huge.
basically, I have my degrees in psychology. I mean, we're Skinnerians. I mean, Skinner was this fellow at Harvard that did not a bit of work on human beings, did a ton of work on pigeons. Everything was stimulus response. And that basically, may I show you a book if I can find it in all these books? That's the basis of our education today. And one of the most striking figures, and I actually had to double check. I knew China was doing very well in education because they have a meritocratic, I don't pronounce words very well, but a meritocracy. That's been China's history for 5,000 years. And they do very, very well in education.
Mm-hmm.
Russia, not so much. I mean, Russia's complicated because there's the Soviet Union, which is one thing, and now there's Russia, which is something else. Soviet Union was horrible under Stalin, etc. But I don't want to get there. But the thing that really amazed me is that Russia has passed us. Russia, which back in 2000, you know what their GDP per capita was in 2000? Russia,
No, I know.
$1,000 per
Whoa.
capita when Putin took power. And that's when Russia became Russia again. He was a drunk. I mean, Yeltsin's slogan was, if I'm not drunk in the morning, it's a wasted day. I mean, that was basically, I think, his slogan. I mean, Putin is really a dead serious man. And I'm not, singing his praises. I'm sure, he can do monstrous things. But I really haven't heard him break a lot of promises, to be very honest with you. But I'm sure, I don't want to get into that. But he took whatever it was, he took Russia from $1,000 a day GDP to a country today that is, in terms of military technology, and I'm just reporting facts, not my opinion. I don't know enough to have an opinion on this stuff. They're ahead of us. They're way ahead of us with its Oreshnik missile. I mean, these two strategic weapons that they came up with, the Poseidon, which is which is powered by a little nuclear reactor that can cross the sea and basically drop megatons on on the East Coast. And this other strategic weapon that can hover at 15 stories, hover over the White House, and we won't be able to pick it up with a radar. What happened to our technology? There's two questions here. How did Russia do this? Well, they did it because I think, were protecting their homeland for once. I mean, the Soviet Union was never Russia. It was a completely different thing. It was just a collection of republics. And Russia was at the center of it. Ukraine and Russia, people get these places mixed up. They're not the same. I mean, Ukraine hates Russia. They've always hated Russia. They were a forced republic of Russia. I mean, there's so much. I mean, what can I say? I could sum it up by saying the only way you can get by successfully in today's world is be your own doctor. I'm not saying you don't consult other doctors. Be your own nutritionist. Be your own historian. Take responsibility, for what's happening. And, I look at myself and I think I have a, fairly successful record, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing that I have going for me, the only edge that I can say that I have going for me, and I'm being completely truthful, I'm coming back to your comment on education, is that I don't want to get into my childhood, but I really did not have a mother and father. I did not have authority figures to look up to. So I had to verify everything. It doesn't mean that I dismissed authority, but I was forced to prove things to myself. And that's what saved me. I mean, intelligence is really a personality characteristic. It's not something that, you can test for on an SAT score. I don't care what your SAT score. I don't think I've ever asked anyone I've employed
Right.
where they went to college, what their SAT score. I don't care. I couldn't care less. I want someone that's creative and can think. And that's what it is. I mean, creativity, humanness, what we are, it's basically personality. Intelligence is a word that we made up here. It was made up by a guy named Benet in France because he wanted the most capable white men to do work. I mean, that's not a good definition of intelligence.
Right.
If I'm in Australia, lost in the Australian jungles, I don't care if you've got an IQ of 500. I want to get out, and I'm not going to get out unless I can find an aborigine that lead me the way out. I mean, intelligence is just something, and maybe the culmination of this whole thing is AI, because AI is not intelligence. I mean, it is basically just a bunch of wires, and it has no creativity, no humanness, no generosity, no sense of anything. I don't know how you feel. I mean, on that particular issue, but that's my take.
That actually goes into what we were just talking about, because today, even
Education.
in schools, the teachers are saying, I don't know if AI generated this or the student generated that. And that is really, I would say that my personal advantage and what makes me different, number one, I am definitely a creative, but I show up and do the work. You got to show up, and you got to be curious, and you got to do the work. And I'm concerned that as much as we've taken away since the 70s and then going back to the 13s, who is going to have the ability to think these things through? I'm as good as I am because I've been doing it on some level for 70 years, right?
I mean, you and I are the, I wasn't always, interested in gold, but we've been involved in the same business.
Curiosity.
I just wasn't smart enough to see gold was an answer, but somewhere along the line, I realized that gold was utterly necessary.
Yeah.
Because I think a country, and this is my own wacky thinking, if you even want to call it so, but I think a country, in order to succeed, has to have a spiritual underpinning. And democracy is a wonderful underpinning, but it easily loses its spirituality. And I don't want to get into this philosophical, political discussion, but when we went off the gold standard, we lost our spirituality, because gold provides a bridge. Gold is the only element that is intrinsically beautiful. You value gold for what it is. It's beautiful. Anybody, and it's beautiful across the world. There's not a religion in this world, whether you're talking Buddhism in China for their New Year's, which is coming up in about a month or so, they're going to be wearing two colors. I mean, a lot of them, red and gold. Gold does not stand for money. Gold stands for the heavens. Gold's a religious artifact throughout the world. Red stands for what is on earth. So gold has this ability, and sometimes it's abused. It really is. But this gold has this ability to sort of cross this bridge. It can be at once a spiritual, beautiful metal because it's intrinsically beautiful and valued for itself. And it can also be a monetary metal. Yeah, there is Midas. But it's very interesting that, countries that have been on the gold standard, I learned this late in life. I mean, when I say late in life, I mean possibly within the last 6 months, that countries that have really been devoted to the gold standard in the 19th century and this century, for as much as we were, they've done great. They have done great. They really have done tremendously well. And it can't all be coincidence, Lynette. It really can't. And you read philosophers like, Simone Weil, who's a favorite of mine, and wasn't a fan of monetary things. I mean, she died when she was 32 fighting against Franco because she wanted to take the same rations as the soldiers. So this is hardly a materialistic, young woman. But even she admits in one of her writings that when France was on the gold standard, system ran much better, much better. I mean, she had to do it reluctantly, but she did it. I mean, and she said, gold's beautiful. She couldn't deny it. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. You need to cross this barrier. I really believe in that. Maybe you think I'm crazy, but I mean, I think that is so important.
Well, I think you probably are crazy, and so am I. So that's
I probably
okay.
am, and you're probably right.
That's
I mean,
for me, and I agree with everything that you've said, but I want to add a little bit to it, right?
sure.
And
I'd
what
love
I
to hear.
want to add to it is that because of the properties that gold has particularly, it's used in every single sector of the global economy, which makes it above the ability of governments and central banks to inflate away and abuse because it has the broadest base of demand.
I cannot agree with you more. And you added something just now to my way of thinking. So sort of the way, and I think your way of thinking is I want to confess, I think it's a little bit better than my way, but I think you can combine them. Gold is valued everywhere, and it's valued as a religious artifact. And one of these reasons is that it's malleable. It's the most malleable metal there is. It's the most ductile metal there is. So even though it's very costly, churches can afford to decorate churches with it because they can stretch it, etc. And every religion, again, uses gold. Where so basically, I'm totally agreeing with you. But I think, ironically, everything you said about gold is true. It's a wonderful conductor of heat. It's a wonderful conductor of electricity, and even nano gold is essential in medical stuff. But where I would sort of,
It's
add a
okay if you
nuance.
disagree with me. It's okay.
What?
It's okay if you
No, I'm not. I know it's okay. I mean, you're probably much more sure of yourself than I am. I know I'm not going to upset you by disagreeing with you.
Yeah, you will.
But because I basically do agree with you. But what I would add that has sort of fascinated me, and this is sort of my kind of journey through religion, etc., and spiritualism, whatever, is that gold, despite all these properties, with the exception of nanotechnologies, which are used in medical, you can substitute for it. You can substitute copper for it. You can substitute silver for it. And I know silver has its advantages, and it's also a beautiful metal. I'm also a big fan of silver, etc., as I know you are. But you can substitute for it. Gold, you're not going to run out of. What I think Trump is trying to do now, I'm giving Trump a lot of credit, and I don't particularly care for the man. I'll be very, very honest, but I do think he's trying to make peace. But he's going to try and back up, maybe, some people claim he's going to try and back up the dollar with, maybe oil, other commodities. Can't do it because you're going to run out of those other commodities. You will never run out of gold because you could always substitute. Nanotechnologies, a billionth of a gram of gold is not gonna. It's gonna take you a billion years to use up, gold to make, enough significance. So I think it's remarkable. It's a nuance to what you're saying. That yes, gold has all these remarkable properties, everything, and it can't be inflated away. Everything you said, I completely agree. But also, you can't use it up. You cannot
It's
use
indestructible
up gold.
as well.
In fact, it's totally, I'm sorry to talk so much.
No.
It's so indestructible that during World War II in France, Olympic medals that were made out of gold that the French made, that the French won, they basically took these medals, they dissolved them in acid, which gold you can dissolve in acid. But unlike most other things, when the war was over, they recovered the entire gold. And it's an experiment you can do in your basement. I don't recommend it, especially for someone like me. I'd blow myself up if I ever tried to do it. But it's not, you're not reinventing physics in order to get the gold away from the acid. That's all I'm saying. indestructible. That's why religions use it. I mean, these cathedrals that were decorated thousands of years ago, they still have the same gold there.
Exactly. Exactly. So let me throw one more little piece in there too, because you mentioned earlier that those countries that had remained on the gold standard did much better. Why? Because what gold does for governments and therefore for the public is it forces fiscal responsibility when it is redeemable. Because I know that you believe that gold should be the I shouldn't speak for you. But can you
No, you
explain
can.
how
You
you
probably speak more articulately than I do for me, but go ahead.
well, we're talking about gold as the foundation of money. I mean, this is why they've tried many things over the years, but only gold meets all the criteria to be a sound money, but it must be redeemable. That's why when we were talking about earlier about Warren, I mean, his father fought so hard for redeemable gold in the system. So how do you feel about, I know how I feel about that, but I want to know how you feel about that.
I want to, it's a very, very good question. And I'd be lying to you if I had told you I had an immediate answer. I think gold has to be redeemable. Yes, I agree with that. But for what? I mean, to redeem it for dollars doesn't make a lot of sense to me. To redeem it for other assets, hard assets, does make a lot of sense. And that's what I believe, that it should be redeemable for other assets. And, just to quote, I took some notes in preparation for this talk last night. There are, I can't read my writing, but there are about, let's say there are 40 critical metals in the world that we need to run our economy. We produce probably 15% of those. The rest of them we have to get from other countries. And the country that we get the most from is China. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, to be going to war with a country that we're totally dependent on for, lots of things, or, fighting them. I mean, no, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I think gold has to be redeemable for things that are critical for running the country.
Mm-hmm.
A dollar bill is basically a piece of paper right now, Lynette. In my opinion, it's worth the amount of money. I mean, you have to Empire State Building high pack of $100 bills in order to be valued at a couple of ounces of gold, because they only value the paper. So I mean, to say, I'm not sure whether I want to say it should be redeemable for, dollars, as dollars are perceived today.
It's just the opposite, because, like we were talking about with this gold certificate, you took that into any bank and you pulled the gold out. It's not pulling the dollars out. It's having the ability to pull the gold out of the system.
Okay. I misunderstood your
Right.
question. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely in that case. Absolutely in that case. I mean, I don't think they were that much different. I mean, if you can pull the gold out, you can also pull out any other asset you need to run the country.
Exactly.
I mean,
Because
if you're just pulling out a dollar, it's worthless. I mean, that's all I was trying to say in my long-winded way, and I apologize for that. I really do. Yes, you're totally
great.
right.
Don't you worry about a thing. I'm having a good time. I hope you're having a good time. And if we're
I'm
having
having a great
the
time.
viewers will also be having a good time. And so that's what we want to do, is entertain and educate, right? That's
Right.
really
I
what
think
we're looking for.
right now we want to educate more than entertain, to be very serious about it, because I think a lot of people are in a lot of trouble and they
Yeah.
have no idea how much trouble they're in. And personally, this is the first time in my life where I often go to bed really worrying about what's going to happen. I really do. Um, you brought up education. It's deplorable.
That's
It is so bad. I mean, we did a study on eighth grade, math, which is, very important. I'm pretty good in math, and the person I was doing this study with is pretty good in math. But I mean, I'm not a mathematician. I found errors on the test, errors that were made up, that weren't hard to find, and the kids today are doing,
Yeah.
I don't know, a standard deviation worse than they were doing 20 years ago in this country. Russia, again, I'm coming back to what I said, Lynette. Russia, with the wars and everything else. I mean, it's one thing, China with their meritocracy, etc. But Russia, how did they pass us in math at 10th grade level? How were their 10th graders considerably better than our 10th graders in math? We've done something terribly wrong,
Well, we
terribly wrong.
have. And I wonder if in the and I don't know the answer to this, and I'm just kind of posing this, but in the quest for control by dumbing down the population, I mean, ultimately, who does that hurt? It hurts the whole country. It hurts the whole world.
Everybody. Yes, exactly. And I agree with everything you said. I mean, everything that you basically implied. I mean, this dumbing down of our population, which at a certain point you have to assume it's deliberate. I mean, this stimulus and response thing, this discouraging creativity, discouraging
Yep.
humanness. I mean, you know, for my favorite philosopher is Wittgenstein. He believed it. You know, no one can know anyone else. Everybody's created in and of themselves. They're their own person. And I can't know what you're thinking now. You might think I'm a roaring idiot. I mean, you know, you're hiding it if you are, but I mean, you might
That's
be.
not how I feel.
And you know, everybody has their own creativity. Again, their own humanness, their own generosity, things that define them. Coming back to what I said before. But what makes us unique is our personality. We're destroying that personality right now. AI is destroying that personality. One of my proudest moments recently is I got AI. It was a 10,000 word conversation I had with whatever it was, Chat
Wow.
GBT, the latest one. I got, after 10,000 words, I got AI to say that I am profoundly spiritual. I was very proud of that because they're anything but profoundly spiritual. I mean, they're exactly the
Right.
opposite. They is that a it's blasphemy to call AI spiritual. I really mean that. I'm using the word blasphemy literally. It's blasphemy to call AI spiritual. They're destroyers. They destroy our creativity. And there have been people that have killed themselves. I mean, you had AI telling this
Yes.
guy that he was the best mathematician in the world, and guess what? I mean, no, not. I mean, it's something has to be done. And, you know, maybe I'm grasping on a very, very weak branch in saying the only thing we have left right now is Trump. I think he's vastly misunderstood on certain levels. One of the leading psychiatrists literally in the world wrote a book a few years ago calling him psychologically sound. That was the name of the book. And yeah, I know he acts like a buffoon in certain ways, the cursing, the this, the that. I don't, there's nothing I like about him. I wouldn't go out for a drink with him. I wouldn't go out for a hot dog with him. In fact, if I saw him at a hot dog stand, I think I'd walk the other way. But he's all that we have left. And I do think he's giving a go of it. I think he is trying to make peace. And when I see something like Venezuela, I mean, if people everywhere are making this kind of craziness about Venezuela, what did he do? He kidnapped a thug. He didn't break any. Venezuela's government still stands. I mean, I've seen people talk about China's ashamed because of what they did. Why should China be ashamed? They still have the same agreement with the Venezuelan government. They never had an agreement with Maduro, as far as I know. He was in this country and declared the president of Venezuela by the U.S. I mean, yes, I don't approve of kidnapping and I'm against it and I wish it didn't have to happen. But, maybe we're at a point where, this is the best choice and maybe he is making the best choices. And maybe I'm making a fool out of myself by, defending him in this kind of way. But what choice do you have? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think that we particularly have a lot of choices, but you did hit on a few interesting things. My personal opinion is that his job is as a change agent. And so, yep, he is absolutely 100% doing his job. When you're looking at Venezuela, and I know you just recently did a piece on what everybody is getting wrong, right? So I want to talk
Right.
about that. But I also want to say that we're going into a very interesting change, not just in the global financial system, but also in the alliance shift, et cetera. And nobody's really going to know how this falls out. I will tell
I
you that
agree.
a concern that I have because of this action is that could maybe take somebody like a Putin or Xi and say, well, it's not just the U.S. that can make these choices. And was Maduro bad? Yes, but that's not really what the argument is. It'll be interesting to see how it is explained in international law. That lies ahead of us. Whether that was legal or not legal, I don't think you can undo it anyway, even if it's
I think I think it was illegal. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it was definitely illegal.
I don't know, but and I don't even. Well, I do care because is it are we now shifting into a period of time where it's might makes right? Do you see what I'm
I
saying?
think we
And it
better
isn't
hope
just
that
us
we're
that would
not,
have that
because
advantage.
we don't have an advantage in that case, in my opinion. I think the advantage are the countries that have the military technology, and that's China and Russia. And if there's something that I do wrong, and there's a lot of things that I do wrong, so I take that back. Among the many things that I do wrong is I may give too much credit to Xi and Putin. I believe that they have very long-term cultures.
Yes.
I think Russia ran off the rails for about 150 years with the Russian Revolution. Stalin was that's well, both were monsters, but Lenin was a real monster. For the first thing Lenin did, incidentally, and this you can read. I know you're familiar with that piece that Buffett wrote. He confiscated all the gold.
Yep.
He wanted to run the money, the country. I mean, he's a very, very bright guy. No more gold. Everybody had to turn their gold in. But I may give Putin and Xi too much credit. And I confess that I may. But I do believe that both those countries, certainly they're not democracies in the sense that we typically define democracy. I'm not going to argue that at all. But I did look up democracy the other day, and I found an article, and I'd be happy to send it to you, by a former dean of the Yale Law School, which is very, very good law school. And he said the only common denominator you can find in democracy is that those that make the laws are subject to the laws they make. Now, I think that is true to a large extent in China. I think that if Xi was found to be totally corrupt, he would probably lose his job. Now, maybe I'm giving him too much credit. Maybe I'm giving the country too much credit. Putin right now, from what I hear, and I have no special information, and again, I'm saying I'm out on the ledge with this one. And if you think that you don't want to have anything more to do because I'm saying these kinds of things, I'm not going to argue with you. But Putin right now, the pressure that he's under is from the right in Russia. They want him to use this Oreshnik and get rid of Kiev. He's the one that's been standing up. And if you look at, when he went into Russia back in 2022, one of the first blogs I did, I think for Eric King, I said that I don't think he had a choice. I mean, basically, we're ready to arm Ukraine and surround him with nuclear weapons. That was the number one reason he went in. Number two was the constant bombing of the Russian-speaking people in eastern Ukraine. Not only the constant bombing, but the fact that they were not allowed to use their language in their schools, and they were not allowed to worship in their church, which was Greek Orthodox. They were treated terribly. And who treated them so terribly? Western Ukrainians. And who ran really Western Ukraine? Well, the descendants of the Nazis. And that was another reason that Putin gave for going into Ukraine. He wanted to denazify it. And if you look just within the last 2 weeks,
Mm.
the number two man, if not the number one man in Ukraine, is this guy, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name, but he, check it out. This is on, this is not any secret news that I had a dream about or anything else, is a guy that is very close to these Banderites, the Nazis. And he basically is running the show now in Ukraine, possibly more than even Zelensky. And this is not good. I mean, guess what? I mean, yes, I know there was a Cold War after, World War II, but if it weren't for Russia, I mean, we could be living in an entirely different world this year. I mean, we could be,
Oh, I do.
I don't know if you know the story, Man on the High Castle. I mean, Germany, I mean, it was Stalingrad and the loss of 2 million Russian lives that basically assured that we won the war. I mean, we came in very late. When we came in,
Yeah.
war was practically over. I mean, this doesn't make Russia great. It doesn't make Stalin great. It doesn't, Stalin's a monster. I mean, there are a lot of monsters in a lot of different places. And you'll never get me to, praise Stalin. I might praise some of the Russian musicians. I mean, and I have a, very close Russian friend and I love chess. So there's a lot of things about Russia, but, as a country, no, not really. I don't belong there. It's not my culture. But I don't think they're quite as bad as we're making them. Let me just say that. And I think that we have done a kind of, and stress kind of, U-turn by handing Ukraine $300 billion to continue a war with people with a country that wants to liberate people that speak their language, wants to denazify a country on their border, and doesn't want additional nuclear bombs on their border. I don't see that as being so terrible. Now, I admit I'm out on a limb here, and people will disagree with me, and I'm not going to fight them. I mean, because it's my opinion. I'm not going to back down, but I'm certainly not going to hold it against anyone who says, "Who's this guy that's saying things that are good about Russia and China?" I mean, heavens knows he's out of his mind. Maybe I am, but it's what I believe right now.
But here's the thing. Part of what has also been happening in this world is everybody divide and conquer, right? So if I disagree with
Totally.
you, I have to hate your guts and want to kill you. That is not how I feel, right? The way that I feel
So right.
is we need all.
No, not right, not to hate my guts, but right to say divide and conquer.
Well, I don't hate your guts because, that's really what gives those that are in power a lot more power. We have to have this discourse. And I'm talking about, I have conversations with people that are just married to cryptocurrency. And my point is, I may agree, I may disagree, but I am going to absolutely 100% support your right to have your opinion. Because if I
Totally.
take your opinion away from you, guess what happens to my opinion? And that's part of the fight. That's part of what goes into having sound money back in the system again. Because right now, I feel like I think it's absolutely disgusting that I had more rights growing up than my 10-year-old granddaughter has. That's disgusting to me, right? And so
Yes.
however you feel or whatever you believe, and I'm really not just saying this to you, I'm saying this to everybody, and the people that come to my live know that, because I have such great fans that just will defend me no matter what. And so
Deservedly so. Deservedly so, Lynette, really.
Thank you. But, somebody might come in and say something snarky or something that's totally against what I say, and people will jump on top of them. And I'm like, no, don't do that. We need to hear everything, because you cannot make an educated choice if you're only looking at it from one perspective.
I could not agree with you more. And I will even add, I know this sounds, silly and contradictory, I hope I'm wrong about China and Russia in a way. I hope that this is the greatest country. I know it was the greatest. I know Russia and China were not the country we were
Right.
after the Second World War. That's for sure. I'm just saying that they're not the monsters that we necessarily believe that they are. And on that, you could totally disagree with, but
Well,
I thank you for hearing me.
I can say that I don't like the politics in a place, but I love the people of a place. And there are a lot of places that I've been where I can honestly say that I don't like the politics. I don't agree with it at all, don't like them, but the people are lovely and wonderful. So I don't judge individuals based on what the leaders do, really
Well,
anywhere in the world. But I want to go back to Venezuela a little bit because I
sure,
know
sure, sure,
that
sure.
one of your key pieces is resource scarcity. And
Yes.
I'm wondering if that might not be one of the reasons why President Trump made the choice to go into Venezuela, an extraordinarily resource rich country, and is now looking at Greenland, again, a resource rich
I'm
country.
shaking my hand fiercely in agreement with you. I think it was a major reason. And I think there were a couple of reasons. One, not so controversial, which is what you said. Totally agree with you. We desperately need resources. I don't think we have nearly enough gold to make a difference in terms of backing up our currency. So I think we have to rely on other resources. I mean, there's things that are wrong with oil, namely, we're going to use it up. I mean, unless again, the Chinese supposedly, and this was an article was published September 30th last year in Science magazine. They have a way of refining oil so it doesn't produce emissions. Maybe oil is an answer. I mean, I'd be happy to find that
But it
out.
gets used up.
But what's that?
But
Can't
it
be
gets
used.
used up, to your point. It
Yes, you're
gets
right.
used up,
You're right.
right?
You're right. I
They can't
misspoke.
have
I didn't think it
cows
through.
because cows die, right? You
You're,
have to have a
you're totally
constant.
right. Right, right. So oil will always be a second best choice. Copper will be a second best choice. Silver will also be a second best choice. If I'm not saying that silver at times is a much better investment than gold. At times it is, but it'll always be a second best choice because, as we spoke earlier, it can be used up. Gold cannot be used up. So, but still, I think it was one of the reasons that Trump went into Venezuela was for the resources, the 300 billion barrels of oil more than Saudi Arabia. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting, and here's where you might totally disagree with me, but just say, well,
It's good.
he's entitled to his own
I
opinion.
like a disagreement. It's good.
Right. I also think he went in because what he wants to create, and maybe I'm giving him too much credit. I'm looking for around if I could show you a copy of this book that was written by this very, very prominent psychiatrist on Trump. I think Trump wants peace in the world, despite all his flaws and everything else. And he would love to see China, Russia, and the US working together, maintaining their sovereignty. Okay. I'm not saying, when I say China, Russia, and the US working together, I don't mean creating an authoritarian complex. I mean, letting us have back our democracy because today I don't think we really have a
No, we
democracy in
don't.
this country at all. I'm I would love to have our democracy back, and I
Me
think
too.
Trump also. I mean, who Trump studied a lot under. He was very informative in his early years. This is from this book. It's not something that I grew up knowing. Norman Vincent Peale. He was a minister, and he had tremendous influence on Trump. Just tremendous influence. I mean, and if you look at Trump and all his speeches, and again, I'm not trying to defend the man. As I said before, if he was in a hot dog stand, I wouldn't stand in the same stand. But you've got to give the devil his due to a certain extent. And when I see him in a campaign, and his family there, albeit from about I don't know how many different wives, but they're all there. I mean, there's something that has a spiritual aspect to me that sort of touches me on a spiritual basis when I see a man that whose family really looks up to him and is willing to campaign for him. And this in spite of the fact that he probably treated all these wives not so well, etc. I mean, what I'm saying is that he would like to set up a world, in my opinion, and this is a long shot. Don't ask me to give odds on this as a prediction, but I think he'd like to set up a world where the U.S. has back the kind of sovereignty that we had uh, well, since 1913. If you want to go back to that year, I think you did initially mention that year, but certainly to post World War II, that kind of sovereignty where we're a true democracy, where we're incredibly creative people. I mean, one thing Buffett has totally right is there's something in the American blood that makes us very, very creative.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trump wants to go back there, but you can't wave a magic wand. I mean, that genie is out of the box. It's going to take a while to get there. And I think that what you have to do is maintain your sovereignty, which we could lose very easily, Lynette. I really feel that. And that's not a long shot. I mean, if Andy McGuire is right and China has 80,000 tons of gold, I mean, we could lose our sovereignty in 5 minutes, literally. But I think Trump wants us to maintain our sovereignty. I think he wants to be wealthy, but I think there's a spiritual basis underneath him, and I think he wants to see the world as a sort of three countries: China, Russia, and the United States, all maintaining whatever sovereignty they want. He doesn't want that to be anybody else's business, and wants our democracy back. I think he would settle for that. I disagree with people that say he wants to become a dictator. The one thing I do like about Trump, he's about my age. So it gives me hope that I have a few years left because he certainly has a lot of energy. But not so much energy that he wants to be dictator. I mean, at 80 years old or close to 80 years old, that's not on the horizon. And I think he's, smart enough to realize that. But anyway, so I think that there is something about working together with China and Russia and creating a better world. Now, when it comes to oil, very interestingly, the U.S. used to be as a common expression when you talk about the U.S., used to be by far the largest refiner of oil in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not even a vertically integrated refiner of shale oil, heavy oil. We need to import oil in order to refine our own oil. China is the largest refiner of oil in the world. Russia does a lot of things with resources. And I think, incidentally, whatever you may think about Putin, I'm not going to argue with you. And it's more than just your right to have an opinion, because it would surprise me if I were eating dinner with Putin, he got up and he said, "Excuse me," for a second, went over and blew somebody's brains out, and then came back and ate with me. I mean, I'm not saying he's a great guy. I just want you to know that. But the point that I'm trying to make, Putin wants a relationship with the U.S. I think that's clear. And I think that was clear with this latest conversation. Who does Trump send to talk 5 hours with Putin? Did he send Rubio? No, Rubio's nowhere. He's viceroy of Venezuela, whatever in the world that means. He sent two people. He sent Witkoff and Kushner. And what do they have in common? As far as I can tell, one thing: Trump trusts them. And this is what Trump lacks right now. He lacks agency. The agency is in the hands of the donors. I mean, I think I'll go crazy if I hear Israel lobby again. I mean, yes, Israel has a lot of power. They're very important in the Middle East. But to say that Israel rules the United States is just nonsense. They don't. There's only like 10 million Jews in the U.S. There's 330 million, others. To give them credit, I mean, they have a horrible prime minister, in my opinion. And I think if they had a good prime minister, they'd be, also a very good ally. Not now, not with Netanyahu there. I'm sorry, I can't, I just don't like him at all. But I think they have a lot to offer. They're a meritocracy. They've always been a democracy. I mean, not now, but they're inventive. They're creative. I mean, they would be a nice cherry on top of a big 3-layer cake of the United States, China, and Russia, where each layer is allowed to be unique in their own right. We can have our democracy back. China can rule with 7 people in the Politburo. Russia can rule, however they rule. I mean, it's not as bad as people think. I mean, for one thing, freedom of religion is vital in Russia, totally vital. Putin's favorite philosopher believed in freedom of religion, also believes in draconian enforcement of laws, which I don't necessarily believe in. So, I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not saying there aren't a lot of horrible things about Russia, but there are a couple of good things about them. Freedom of religion is a very good thing, in my opinion. Our freedom of spirituality. You're allowed to be anything in Russia. If you want to be homosexual, you can be homosexual. If you want to be this or that, but he's not in favor of parades. Whatever. It's off the topic. I'm getting carried away with it. All I'm saying is I don't want to be Russian. I have good Russian friends, very, very close Russian friends. I like them tremendously. Would I go to Russia? Maybe for 3 or 4 days to try the food. But do I want to go there to live? No. Do I want to go to China to live? No. Do I have a lot of respect for some of the things China does? Yes. Could I ever be part of their culture? No. Would I want to be part of their culture? No. I want to be part of what the U.S. was in the 1970s, the early 1970s. After JFK died or was assassinated, that's when I think things really started going downhill. That's when we started spending fantastic amounts of money on a meaningless war, etc. But still, until 71, we were a great country. And maybe there's never been a country like that again. And not only do I look old enough, I am old enough to remember what a great country I lived in that time. And I did not appreciate it. That's the country I want to go back to. And I don't see any way, and maybe it's my own lack of imagination, how to get back there other than, what Trump is trying to do right now. And then, following that, a gold standard. Trump's a big fan of gold, yes, incidentally. I mean, he really is.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to be caught defending him too much, but I mean, I'm just speaking truth.
Look,
I mean, he might be.
I don't care who you are. I don't care where you are in the world. There are good and bad parts to absolutely everybody. And I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but even me.
No, I find it hard I find it hard to believe the bad parts, not the good parts. You strike me as, I'm not trying to flatter you. I'm just speaking the truth. You strike me as totally genuine.
Oh,
and if I could clone
everybody else is taken. I can only be myself after all.
Right. I mean, if someone could clone you and, pass you around, we'd still be in the 70s and, or the 60s, and we'd be a great, great country again.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get.
We would be back on the gold standard, because it isn't the amount of gold. It's what it is in terms of whatever the fiat, the local currency, is going to be. And you talk about
exactly.
A new global reserve system. What do you mean by that?
I wrote a book in 2020. This was published in 2020. And I was lucky. I sort of got it right. I said that there would be a gold standard, a worldwide gold standard, that we were headed that way. And I stopped. I said, that's about as far as I can go. Because, my best guess is that you would have currencies backed by gold and gold backing the money in the world. It would be two things. It would be currencies that themselves are backed by gold and other commodities. Silver would definitely have a place.
Yeah, secondary.
But primarily gold would have the major place. I really haven't changed that much, Lynette. I'm much less sure of myself than I was when I wrote that book. I thought, how else could it be? Well, a lot of other ways. But gold has to play a vital role. I'm totally convinced of that. And, again, I'm coming back to the fact, I mean, I view gold as a spiritual metal. It's a bridge between the materiality of the necessity of having a material world and also the necessity of having a spiritual world. You have to have a bridge between the two. And I cannot find a better bridge than gold. So I think whatever happens, it has to happen where gold plays a major, major role. And, currencies backed by gold and gold itself, and now they have the technology for doing these trades by moving safes from one corner of a room to another corner of a room, that have gold in it. I mean, maybe that would be still my best guess, but with much less surety than I had back when I wrote that book. I'm
See,
not
I have
nearly
a
as sure
lot
as I was then.
more. I have a lot more surety.
Well, that makes me feel very good. Thank you very much. I mean, really, if that's even if that's not meant as a compliment, thank you very much anyway. I mean, I really appreciate that. I mean, yeah, that's how I see it. I don't see how you could construct a world in which humanity is the major priority, in which gold does not play a major role. And countries have to keep their own culture.
They
I mean,
do.
people don't see this. I mean, no, I don't agree with China. I don't want to move to China. No, I don't agree with Russia. But if you take away their culture, they're going to devolve. There's not going to be a Russia to help us create new physics and new things. And if, we've already, done a very good job in destroying our own culture. I want that culture back again
Yeah.
in this country. I don't want China's culture. I don't want Russia's culture. I want the culture we had in the 60s and 70s when I can remember.
Yeah.
And
When you knew that
that
the
was
American dream was attainable, and that's part where at
totally
least you believed
right.
it. Today, the kids, they're seeing that that was like a big fat lie. But when you and I were coming up, it was in the earlier stages, and there was a lot of opportunity. And I think a lot of what you're talking about is entrepreneurship, right? Having the
Totally.
confidence and the creativity to take a risk and go out on your own.
And go out and you could start with nothing. I mean, my grandfather, who was probably the most important male figure in my life, was orphaned when he was 11. He was the youngest of 11.
Mm.
And he became a wealthy man. He didn't die wealthy. I mean, he liked women too much, but I mean, he became a wealthy man. And he did it with nothing.
Yep.
I mean, you could do that in America. I can't picture somebody do I can't picture a poor, kid coming out of the ghetto becoming a multimillionaire today or, whatever. I mean, it's
Unless
very,
you're an
very
NBA
hard to
star.
picture.
I mean,
Excuse me?
that's unless you're like an NBA star football. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that
no, I'm excluding the NBA stars.
right.
I mean,
That's the ticket. But yeah, I mean that's the part I think that has me the saddest is that there
I
are
agree.
people that are coming up now, the kids, they're saddled with so much student loan debt. They're saddled with a lot of this, which was that we'll have to save this for another day because we're running out of time. But
I'm sorry about that.
they're no, you're great. We're
I talk too much. I know I do.
But this is your interview. You're supposed to talk. I hear myself talk all the time, blah, blah, blah. I'm glad to hear you talk. It's really,
Well, thanks, but
it's awesome.
I do
But
talk too
that
much. But
is, but that is also what can create the revolution, right? And
I
we were
think that's
both
a great
there in the
point.
60s, but I don't know about you. I was not aware at that time that there was a run on the dollar in the 60s. And that's really
Either
what,
was I.
oh,
I
right.
I guarantee you became aware of it far much before I did. And I
Well,
would say we're roughly the same age. You're ahead of me. And I was totally behind in that area. And
yeah, but
the run on the dollar.
we were in our teens. I was born in 54. So we were in our teens when this was happening.
I have you for a few years. How come you know more than I do? I mean, on this stuff.
I'm very
I'm older than you
curious.
by.
Why? I'll tell you why. Because I have been groomed for this moment in time. And just like things lead you in one direction or another, I have been focusing on this on some level, all different layers and levels since the day, honestly, the day that I was born. And my strongest recollection was when I was 4. So, that's why I know so much because the universe decided to send me in these directions that I needed to go in order to be of value in this world. And that's what I try
So
and do.
I'm going to compliment you. Well, compliment you in both spellings. I think that's wonderful. I mean that, you had a picture of your life in front of you from a very, very early age in a way, and you developed that picture. The only thing I'll say about myself, I mean, I have an impressive academic background, but
You do.
that
You're
doesn't
very
mean anything to
impressive.
me. I mean, but the only thing that really helped me was the fact that, again, like I'm repeating, I did not have an authority figure in my life, and I had to think for myself. I had to verify things. But the only thing that I may have had, been good at was spirituality. I mean,
Mhm.
if I was not a math prodigy, not a reading prodigy. I mean, I probably crawled when I was 6 years old. I mean, who knows? But the
You
first
should have
question
been a
I
surgeon
asked,
because your small motor movements would be awesome.
right, right. But the first question I asked, that I, looked this up in my mother's baby book, mothers keep baby books or what,
Yeah, I didn't have one of those, but go ahead.
milestones, is the first question I asked before I was 3 years old: where does God live? So I've always had this kind of spiritual bent. I
Mhm,
mean, and
mhm.
somewhere along the way, I tied that in with gold. And maybe that was wrong thing. I don't know, but it was just my tendency to do that. And so, in the same, in a way, we complement each other. I mean, I believe gold is a spiritual metal. You believe gold is essential for, a wonderful democracy and a wonderful country. I don't see a whole lot of difference between
Yeah.
those two. I think that we're talking the same language, basically. I don't think this is a question of you tolerating an opinion you may think is horrible. I think that we both share the same, opinions on this. And I'm happy to share that opinion with you, Lynette. I really am. It makes me feel good.
Well, I'm happy to
So,
share that opinion with you as well. And this has been phenomenal. So why don't you is there anything else that, because we've covered a lot of ground and spoken about a lot of stuff today. So is there anything that you want to let our viewers know that we didn't cover today? And then I mean, you're doing such great work. You've got all sorts of things going on. Can you share that with our viewers?
I sort of want to remind, not so much viewers, but, the people that work with me, that, yeah, I'm not a material person. And they had to remind me, to be sure to state your website and where people can reach you. So I'll
Yes.
say, because I always forget. I mean, it's just not a big thing, but
I get it.
stephenleeb.com. But if you go to Stephen Leeb, you'll eventually find me. But stephenleeb.com, I think, is the website, and I think stephenleeb.net is money management.
And
I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think if you go to Stephen Leeb on Wikipedia or just on Google, you'll find me. That I'm
well,
pretty sure of,
and we
unless
will
I've been
put
censored in the last hour. What?
and we will put all the links below. But could you speak just a little bit about your Turbulent Times Investor publication? You should
Okay,
give that a
Turbulent
plug.
Times investor publication is uh, basically it's a successor to the Complete Investor, which was dedicated to finding best investments. Um, and Turbulent Times Investor, I think, is just more dead. It's the same thing. It's a list of how to prosper and how to get through these very, very turbulent times. I'm thinking of changing the name to, instead of Investor, Turbulent Times News or something.
Mhm.
But I guess Investor is pretty good. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I can't say Turbulent Times Pharmaceuticals. So I have to say Turbulent Times Investors. And it has stocks that we think, yeah, that will get through. And if we kept going with this conversation, I would probably tell you every one of those stocks, because I want everyone to prosper. But we have a business and we do charge, but not very much for it. So yeah, that's what it's about. How you can invest, in turbulent times, and these are the most turbulent times I've ever seen. And I'm happy to say we did have a terrific year last year. But probably make up with it for a terrible year this year, because these negative autocorrelations that they speak about. I'm worried sick about that.
Right.
You can never rest in this business. Even
Never.
a great year, you have to expect a terrible year to follow. But so don't subscribe expecting great recommendations. Subscribe because, you think I may have something interesting to say, and every once in a while, a good stock. So
Well,
that's
a
where to
lot of
reach me.
people know that you have a lot of very interesting things to say. And I'm so glad that you joined us today. And I cannot thank you
Lynette,
enough.
it's been true pleasure. I have to say, not just as a guest on a YouTube channel, but just as a conversation. And I want to come back and conclude by saying, if you do get that farm and
Oh,
you're
I
willing to
have it.
rent a house for me, you have it.
Oh, yeah.
You're in Arizona to boot.
Where are you?
And well, if you ever have an extra house and want to rent it, I mean, I'll bid on it probably. I mean, let me know. Seriously. I really respect that. I mean, it's been a wonderful conversation on my part, and I hope I haven't offended you in any,
You have
particular
not
way.
offended me at all. We're good.
And I just enjoyed it enormously. I want to end there instead of giving people a whole list of names where they can reach me. I mean, you heard enough about me today.
And
Okay. I mean,
we'll have all of the links below too, because it's definitely worth the read. It's definitely, this has been great. I've had such a good time, and it's a great
me
way to
too.
kick off the year. And you'll notice I didn't ask you for any predictions. I didn't ask you for any predictions because that is what we cannot control. And everybody asks me what the predictions are. I don't know. What's going to happen?
Lynette, and I'll answer your question without it being asked. I don't know. I have no idea. Tell me how much gold China has, and I'll maybe give you one prediction. If they have more or less, I mean, I'll give you one prediction, but it'll be a wild guess. I mean, I'm being honest. I don't have a particular prediction. I mean, I'll give you a number, but I mean, how much confidence do I have in it? Oh, about as much as throwing 20 heads in a row on an unbiased coin. I mean, not too much. I mean, you've got to be honest. I
Mhm.
mean, I think gold is something you have to own to protect yourself, period.
At any price.
I'm not going to go much further than that.
Wow. We could just go on and on and on, and we need to do that. But I hope that everybody enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, because I know that together in community everywhere in the world, we can make a positive difference for a lot of people. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye bye.